All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Northern Now, the digital event series hosted by NMU Alumni Relations for alumni and friends. My name is Kylie Bunting. I am the Director of Alumni and Foundation Communications here at Northern Michigan University, and I am so glad that you have all joined us tonight for today's Student Spotlight Cooking segment. It's going to be a great evening, and we're really glad that you joined us. So, we're excited to continue this digital series and highlight the talent and the hard work of some of our NMU students in the Hospitality Leadership Program. First, I just want to talk about a couple of logistics. So, while we are unable to see and hear you in this webinar format, we certainly want to hear from you. So please use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask questions of our chefs. We have Logan, who is going to be here relaying all of your questions to our chefs, so send them in at any time and we'll make sure that we get to as many of those as possible. Also use the chat function to talk to others watching. So you can chat with your other fellow alumni and friends who are tuning in. A quick note that the default of the chat window is hosts and panelists, and you need to change that to everybody so you're talking to everybody who's on the call rather than just me and Logan. So do that update and then chat with your fellow Wildcats as you're tuning in. I just want to quickly talk about a couple of upcoming events on the alumni side, open to all alumni and friends. Our next Digital Northern Now will be in early 2025 with another installment of Talks with Testament. The date to that is TBD, but you should be seeing some information about that soon. We also have NMU Day at Ford Field coming up on December 5th. That will be the Detroit Lions versus the Green Bay Packers game. We'll also be having a pregame event and also an event in the suburbs on that Friday night are in the works too, so keep your eye out. Also heading to Green Bay on February 1st for NMU Day at the Green Bay Gamblers. A few other events will be surrounding that weekend as well in the area. And then other events in the Midwest will include stops in Lansing and Chicago later in the spring. So make sure you keep your eye open for everything coming up. You can obviously visit our website and then follow us on social media and make sure you're signed up for all of our emails to get those updates as well. I also want to take a moment to mention Wildcats Connect. This is a platform for alumni and students to ask questions and to offer advice. It's a great way to help out NMU students. It's a great way to stay connected to the university and also get in touch with your fellow alumni. And of course, keep in touch. Follow us on social media. That's where we post all upcoming events, success stories from your fellow alumni, and things that you should be in the know about. So now, let's get started. I'm thrilled to introduce our moderator for this evening, Logan Glendenning, a 2004 and 2016 alumna and assistant professor in the Northern Michigan University Hospitality Leadership Program. Welcome, Logan. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kylie, for inviting me to do this. And I wanted to give a shout out to everybody watching us online and the students and Chef Alden in the kitchen. Thank you each for being here today. I'm absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce tonight's chefs. But starting off, I want to make sure to introduce Chef Alden MacDonald and say thank you so much for putting this on and promoting the hospitality leadership and food service operations programs. Kurt, I see you out there, and you're absolutely correct. Chef MacDonald does require recognition for the fact that she was our this year's recipient for the Alumni Connection Recognition Award, and that award is well deserved based on her participation in things like this and getting this excellent group of students together to participate in events such as this. So, moving forward with our introductions of our chefs this evening, we have student chef Lizette, Stephanie, and Carly out there with some really exciting opportunities to share with you today. And I'm going to move right on into Chef MacDonald, taking the opportunity to lead the floor with these students.
Great. Thank you so much for welcoming us. We're really excited to be back in the kitchen and to be making some really cool food for you today. Also, I'm really excited to hear for you all to hear about some of the stories our students have about the way they feel about food, the inspiration they take from the food they're making, and how personal and exciting food can be in their future careers. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over first to Lizette. And Lizette's going to take that time to introduce herself and tell a little bit about herself and her journey as a culinarian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lizette Lefebvre. So I recently just graduated NMU. I received my bachelor's in applied science in management with a minor in sustainability this past spring. And I made kind of a spur of the moment decision to re-enroll in the culinary program and pursue my associates in food service operations. So I'm very excited to be here, even if my journey's been a little non-traditional.
I love that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing today and get started for us?
Yeah, so today I will be making ratatouille. Um, this is a dish that's very near and dear to my heart, mostly because I saw the movie Ratatouille when I was very young, and people talk about having like a ratatouille moment, like in the movie when he eats food and he realizes that he loves cooking. And that movie was kind of my ratatouille moment. So yeah, I'm going to be starting off with a bechamel sauce. So bechamel is going to be similar to a white gravy. It's a roux-based sauce. It is butter, flour, and milk. So I have that here along with some spices. And to that, I'm going to add some tomato sauce.
And is this a sauce you're going to put on top when you're all done, or?
So this is going to be the base of the ratatouille.
Lovely.
So traditionally, ratatouille is a peasant dish, and it is a stew of summer vegetables. So normally it would be stewed in the tomato sauce, but this sort of upscale version of ratatouille is going to be layered in this lovely pan in a spiral pattern. So I'm going to pour the sauce into the bottom here. And what this is going to do is basically steam the vegetables from below. So I'm just going to pour that in there. And honestly, this dish looks very intricate on screen in the movie and in real life, but it's pretty simple. So the next step is we're just going to layer all of these vegetables. I have tomatoes, summer squash, zucchini squash, and eggplant. And I'm just going to slice them all, layer them, and then arrange them in a spiral in the pan. So this tool here, some of you may be familiar with, is called a mandolin. And it's a little bit scary. In my opinion, every chef should be a little bit afraid of the mandolin because it's a very sharp edge. So I'm going to try and be very safe with this. First thing I'm going to do is slice off the bottom of the eggplant so we have a flat surface to work on. And I'm just going to slice it across.
I wholeheartedly concur that every chef is a little afraid of a mandolin. That's kind of a joke in commercial kitchens about mandolins, is that they're very important tools, but we're all very, we have a healthy respect for a mandolin.
And I do have this other tool, this guard here for when you get kind of farther down with the vegetable, kind of holds it in place. Can make it a little bit harder to use, but it's safer for your hands. So you can utilize that if you like. And the other lovely thing about ratatouille is it's very much involved in terms of this whole step. So to me, food is kind of about community and bringing people together to create something. And every time I've made ratatouille, I end up asking people for help with the stacking process of the vegetables because it gets kind of tedious having to, I'm going to stack this and this and this over and over. So it's kind of a lovely opportunity to just bring people together.
I love that idea of bringing community into the kitchen and having someone stand beside you and assist you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing now?
So I am stacking these in a pattern like so. I have eggplant on the bottom, followed by tomato, squash, and zucchini. And I'm just going to keep going along and doing that with the rest of these vegetables.
Oh, so you actually make the stacks independently first.
Yes.
That is a very good tip for our people at home who want to make this at home.
Mm-hmm. I have tried making it, I do a stack and then I put it in the pan and then put another one in. I just find this to be a little bit more consistent because then you can kind of layer them against each other as you go.
That is very cool.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things I love about this dish is that this one technically is not vegan because I did use a bechamel sauce, which contains milk and butter, but it can very easily be made vegan and it is by nature vegetarian. So it's a lot more of an inclusive dish than some of the soups and stews that we see in restaurants usually. And this dish actually I made for a few separate events in my hometown. We have something called an ethnic food fest at the church that I go to. And everybody within the church is kind of invited to host a booth of their own ethnic cuisine. And I am like 90% French Canadian or something absurd. And so I dabble a lot in French cooking, and this was kind of the first dish that came to mind when I heard about that opportunity. And so I decided to open up a France booth, and I wasn't sure how it would go down, being that I was kind of the youngest person there. But everyone loved it, and I went back the next year and the year after that, and now people ask where the France booth with the ratatouille is.
Very
That's
cool.
a great story, Lizette. Thank you for sharing that. I want to give a shout out. There's some questions about if we will be able to share the recipes that are being produced tonight. And the answer is absolutely. It looks like tomorrow, when Kylie makes sure to send out the recording of this event, we will be including copies of our recipes along with it. So we're really excited to share that with you, because it's not only just recipes for you to be able to create, but this is part of our students' education, is learning how to create these recipes and provide them in a functional way that can be used across teams and with our customers as well. So I'm excited to be able to share these creations full circle with this group.
So what I'm doing now, as I'm preparing to put the vegetables into the sauce, is I'm just kind of making sure that they're shaped in a way that's going to be aesthetically pleasing. So the biggest issue I have with ratatouille is that not all vegetables look the same, and they're not all the same size. Especially eggplant is usually going to be a little bit of a wider diameter than the other ones. So I just like to cut off the bottom of them and make sure that they sit nicely in the pan before I place them in there. And then all you do is kind of just lean them against each other like so. And I'm going to go around the outside of the pan and then into the middle. And this is why I like to do the stacks beforehand, because being that there's a sauce on the bottom, it's very easy for them to sort of slide out of place if you don't have the proper leverage to catch it immediately.
I think that's a great feature in your recipe process, Lizette. We talk a lot about only trying to place ingredients on a plate once, just to make sure that we're keeping any type of mess or liquids that could be moved around. And so I think your practice is really well thought through.
Thank you, Chef G. And as I'm going, I'm kind of just adjusting to make sure that they're all sort of at the same angle. Because when we get to the end here, it's going to be a bit of a tricky process to tuck the vegetables in neatly. But they do shrink a bit as they cook, which will help with presentation in the end.
I always just love the color of ratatouille. That when we do it right and we cook our vegetables, there's just, I mean, even just now, it looks so beautiful with all the different colors. And it does just sing summertime.
So we have a really great question, Lizette. Todd wants to know, does the zucchini make this dish liquidy? Are we concerned at all about that?
I am not terribly concerned about this dish being too liquidy, mostly because ratatouille is originally a stew, first and foremost, and this is kind of just an upscale take on a stew. So the zucchini itself, I wouldn't be too concerned about. If you were concerned about the liquid content, I think the tomato would be the biggest issue. But for the most part, we're kind of aiming for the vegetables to soften a bit here. So what we'll see as it cooks is the sauce that I placed in the bottom, which you can see just a bit of in the middle here, is going to kind of evaporate. Some of that water in the tomato sauce will evaporate, effectively steaming the vegetables while they're in the pan. And the last thing that I'm going to do to sort of make up for some of that potential for sogginess is I'm going to add a quick drizzle of olive oil over the top and just a bit of sea salt. And that's going to keep the tops of the vegetables nice and crispy, giving them a nice brown on top while the bottom is soft and just melt in your mouth.
Lovely.
So now this is going to go in the oven. Depending on the temperature of your oven, I would say about 40 to 50 minutes. This one runs a little bit hot, so it's not going to take quite as long.
Pause one moment while we take it out of the oven.
And per the magic of TV, all done. We pre-made this one, of course. I didn't just pop it in, it was done. So there you have it, is ratatouille. It looks beautiful. To me, when I first saw the movie Ratatouille and I had no idea what it was, I thought it was pepperoni and cheese and then some random green thing. And then I learned that it was squash and I was a little bit heartbroken. But then I tried it and it's honestly delicious. So I'm going to plate this up with just a little bit of Parmesan cheese for us. I'm going to take my tongs here. We're going to grab some tongs.
We're going to get some
actually.
Yeah. We don't want to use those.
Yeah. And also, I'm not sure if this will be visible on camera, but I kind of did a little last minute decision to put a squash rose in the middle. So if anyone is feeling fancy enough to try that at home, all I did was slice some extra pieces of yellow squash very thin, layer them on top of each other, and just sort of roll it around. Alrighty. So I'm going to try and grab 2 stacks of vegetables here. So I'm going to start with an eggplant. And since the tomato was on top for these stacks when I did this one, I'm going to get 2 tomatoes. Try not to squish it too much. Shape it up nice. I'm going to garnish with some freshly grated Parmesan. And just for a little bit of flair, I'm going to add a sprig of thyme on top. And there's ratatouille.
Awesome. We're going to just turn this a little. There we go. That's lovely. That's beautiful, Lizette. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Lizette about ratatouille, her experience here at Northern? Any best practices questions?
One of the questions that just popped up for us is, what would be a nice pairing to go along with a ratatouille? Maybe do we have some additional menu ideas that maybe could accompany this dish?
I would say, so in terms of an entree, I think this would be really nice as a side for a steak, or for a vegetarian, maybe like a seared portobello mushroom cap.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this would function very nicely as a side for a good red meat.
Absolutely, I concur. Also, we used to do ratatouille at a restaurant that I worked at, and it was amazing how many people just ordered it as a side for any of their proteins that you could choose a side for. I've seen it served really well with a nice hearty fish. It would be lovely with like a halibut and you add a little lemon juice to it to make a little lemon pop. And all that would be is making this recipe and just putting a little squeeze of lemon on top and maybe a little lemon zest. And that's the only difference you would do in this recipe. And you serve that with like a nice seared halibut or some other robust fish like that. Absolutely fantastic. It goes great with a nice roasted chicken. You could do a whole roasted chicken and put the ratatouille in the oven those last like 30 to 45 minutes and pull that out, and that would be phenomenal with even just a simple roasted chicken. It doesn't have to be complicated to be delicious.
Absolutely. I think if you're looking for that wine pairing with that, my suggestion is your favorite white wine is the direction I would go with the ratatouille, because this is a meal that definitely can serve as a side dish, but it can also be a very warm fall dish to fulfill you. So
yeah,
excellent.
Use up all those zucchinis that grow in your garden. All right, well, wonderful. We're just going to take about 60 seconds to reset. And now Stephanie is going to talk about a dish that is near and dear to her heart.
That's great. Thanks again, Lizette. You know, this is a really cool opportunity for me. This is the first time I've participated in one of these digital series. And, you know, I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up, but to see so many people from across the country is really, really inspiring. Chef MacDonald and I work so diligently with our students to make sure that they have additional opportunities like this that are so important to our industry and very public facing. Lizette never disappoints me in her ability to engage with the public and so forth. And we really, you know, we prioritize those kind of things in addition to what we view as traditional culinary arts skill sets that they're learning. So, and in addition, this is a great way to show off our new kitchen space. I want to give a shout out to NMU's Northern Center and the facility that we're located in. As you can see right behind Chef MacDonald there's a lovely set of windows. Come observe what we are doing any day of the week when you're in Marquette. But in addition to that, moving forward this next semester, we'll be opening up our fine dining restaurant, the North Fork. We'll open right after the spring break holiday, somewhere are right around March 18th, and excuse me for not having that date at the ready. I'm more concerned right now about building my coursework around it. But we're really excited, and each of the individuals who are presenting to you this evening will be part of running our student-run fine dining restaurant next semester. And in particular, this group will be focused on menu development and seeing actual production of our fine dining. So I got a question coming in here. Do the students prepare meals for events on campus? Thank you for that question. I think one thing that we often have to talk about is the fact that NMU Dining Services is separate from the Hospitality Leadership Program. And so while many of our students are creating meals through their employment on dining services, anything coming from our student body is going to come directly from the Hospitality Leadership Program. And so I suggest you follow our Facebook page, sign up for our email list and so forth, which again, you can look me up, Logan Glendenning, and shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that you're on our marketing list as well. And so yes, we do events, but they're based on our course schedule. So right now we don't have anything specific planned outside of some of these little events like this that are big deals to our students.
Great. So this is Stephanie, and she's going to tell you a little about herself and the dishes she's making for you today.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Gabriel. I am a first-year student in the Hospitality Leadership Bachelor's Program. I have been in culinary school for 2 years already, and that was in high school. And I'm kind of just moving forward as I do want to run my own business one day and become an entrepreneur. So today we're doing a recipe, as Chef Alden has said, very near and dear to my heart. So we are doing a little spin on tapioca pudding. So in this bowl, I have 640 milliliters of coconut milk, and then I have 60 grams of small tapioca pearls. We're going to slowly whisk and pour in the tapioca pearls, and this helps to keep it from clumping as you're going or sticking to the bottom. Once you're done with this and it's fully stirred in and very well incorporated, you're going to leave it and set it to the side for about 40 minutes at a minimum or longer. And this will allow the tapioca pearls to kind of like
They start to hydrate.
Yeah, they start to hydrate. And this will allow the tapioca to be soft when we're cooking it, and it also kind of speeds up the process. I already have some pre-soaked in this pot that I'm going to be using. And then to add to this that's already been pre-soaked, we're going to add in 60 grams of sugar. And then we're also going to add in about a fourth of a teaspoon of salt. And you're going to make sure that's very well incorporated before we add it to the heat. And you're going to cook this at about a medium heat.
Now, salt in a sweet dessert. Why do we add salt even to our sweets?
We add salt to our sweet desserts because salt is actually a flavor enhancer. So it'll actually bring out the flavors once it's cooked down. And salt is also used as a finishing because of the same reason, that it adds more flavor and it helps to enhance the flavors. And then this is going to cook down, and we're just going to watch it and let it go. You're going to stir occasionally until it comes to a simmer. And then once it comes to a simmer, you're going to stir continuously until it becomes nice and thick and the tapioca pearls are translucent.
So tell us a little bit about why you chose tapioca pudding, Stephanie.
Tapioca pudding is very near and dear to my heart, as my whole culinary experience is actually from my dad. My dad used to be a chef back in the day, way when he was younger. My dad used to be a very prominent role in the household, and he's actually the one that used to cook most of our meals when we were younger. He's my biggest inspiration when it comes to cooking. When I was younger, we used to make stuff like this all the time, homemade and from scratch. Granted, we didn't use coconut milk, but this is also a vegan recipe which is a nice little spin on this thing that I've learned over the years, and that's why I incorporated it because it is something new that I've learned. My dad used to be very prominent in my life until unfortunately he passed away in 2013. In his honor, I'm continuing on with my schooling for culinary advancement, and that is why I will be an entrepreneur in the culinary field.
That is a beautiful story, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, that is lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. You know, it's such a great opportunity for us as educators to be a part of your life journeys and understanding that cooking always takes us to, you know, it resonates in our hearts and it takes us in so many different places in our careers. And so, yeah, we're really lucky to get to support you on that journey.
Thank you. Do we have any questions that I should be aware of right now?
I don't have any current questions, but I have a question. You
What's
said
up?
that you added salt to your recipe and you explained to us why. Did you use a certain kind of salt?
We generally here use coarse salt when we're doing it.
Kosher. Yep.
A coarse,
Coarse kosher salt.
yeah, there we go. English. Oh my God. But you can also use other salts. Generally, we don't use like a table salt for this. Just it's just the way it works. Let's be real.
Do you want me to tell you why we don't use table salt?
Yeah.
So we don't use table salt because it's iodized, and not that there's anything wrong with that because I'm actually very happy we had iodized salt when we did in our country, but it affects the flavor. And so we use a very chefs are pretty snotty about their salts. They're very particular. That's a good way of putting it. We're very particular about our salts. And so we use a kosher salt, and I could tell you my favorite brand. It's the only one we have in our kitchen right now. So, but I have different kinds of salts for different things, and we have different kinds of salts here. We have a sea salt for finishing because sea salt has a really a sharper salty flavor, which is pretty cool, and it's
That's
great
good.
for putting on salads or putting on the top of a dish to finish it. So sea salt is a really good finishing salt. A coarser one, like a Malden sea salt, is great for that. And then we do use kosher salt. And the reason we do that is because kosher salt is just salt. There's nothing else in it. And that's what we want. It's just pure salt for all of our dishes because it's the most versatile type of salt. I could
Yeah.
talk for a long time about salt.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, table salt definitely has its place in the bake shop, but we want to
Yep.
make sure that it's a non-iodized table salt, just as Chef McDonald mentioned, is because of that flavor profile. So thank you for that information, Chef McDonald and Stephanie. I did have one question come through. And the question is tapioca typically made with coconut milk? And what other types could be used?
So generally speaking, tapioca is not made with coconut milk. I chose coconut milk for this recipe because it is vegan this way. I have no milk in my recipe due to that. Also, you can start to see in the recipe that the tapioca is becoming translucent and it's slowly thickening. So at this part, that's why I'm continuously stirring now. And I'm waiting for it to thicken more to show you guys a little better. But generally speaking, it is made with milk, just regular like 2% milk, or whole milk. You can substitute part of this recipe for milk if you would like, but that's again by personal preference. And other milks you can also use.
For sure. You can, I mean, an extra creamy oat milk would work fantastically. Any sort of dairy milk will work. The only thing you have to keep in mind is if you say a soy or an almond milk instead, some of them are a little thicker than others. So sometimes they might need to be simmered a little longer, depending for the consistency of the tapioca pudding that you want to have. And also remember that almond milk kind of tastes like almonds, and you know, coconut milk tastes like coconuts, and soy has sort of a particular soy flavor, right? So just be aware that any type of milk or milk substitute you use is going to carry that flavor. And so sometimes you actively choose a different type of milk because you want a different type of flavor. I will say that in other countries, I used to live in Thailand, they use coconut milk in tapioca all the time. In fact, when Stephanie was practicing this last week and she gave me some. I was like, oh, this transports me right back to Thailand with all these flavor profiles that she has with this dish. And so that was pretty fun to see for me as well. So here in America, we may use milk, but I can tell you in other countries, they definitely use different types of milk for this, and it's very common. There's a lot of tapioca in desserts in Thailand, actually.
The
Yeah,
biggest thing to, sorry. The
No,
biggest thing to
no, go.
remember is that if you're using a different milk, maybe not all the same finishes will be used for that.
Yeah.
For this usually tapioca pudding is served with like a cinnamon on top or something like that. But for this one, I'm not doing that just because it doesn't fit the flavor profiles.
That's wonderful.
That's excellent information. And I'd like to give a shout out to the hospitality student body who we really try to focus on making sure that we are training our students to understand traditional culinary arts techniques, but also to have a focus on the dietary needs of a very diverse population that's becoming more and more prominent. And so anytime I see a student choose to make a substitution so that a grander audience can consume that product, I'm rooting for that opportunity. So one more quick question that came through here is, what is the brand of kosher salt used in the NMU hospitality kitchen? Because we know we love that workhorse, don't we?
Yeah. So we like Diamond Crystal kosher salt so much so that I even buy it for my house. I don't care that it's more expensive. It's
really good.
Diamond Crystal kosher salt's the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, for finishing salt, for a general finishing salt, I really love Malden sea salt, and not because it's basically my name with an M on the front of it. It's actually because the way they crystallize the sea salt, it actually crystallizes in little pyramids, which is cool looking, but also when you eat it, it actually makes it crunchy and makes it part of the dish, not just something that enhances flavor. It becomes another dimension of the dish beyond just a little salt on top. That's why I really like Malden sea salt for a finishing salt. So yes, those are the salts that are in our kitchen here in at NMU's teaching kitchen as well, because I purchase everything for here. So
I agree. Those are my two favorite salts in my kitchen as well. Even last year, my stocking stuffer for all my loved ones was little salt containers and boxes of Malden sea salt because I enjoy it so much. I wanted everybody else to have that opportunity.
that's a great gift idea. That's a great gift idea.
Yeah, and we just had a shout out for Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt as well because it's produced in St. Clair, Michigan.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, love that.
That is great. And it's local. We knew that.
Flavor first for us, right?
I can tell you, I've been using Diamond Crystal when I was in Florida, when I was in Missouri, Arkansas, everywhere I've been, Diamond Crystal is king. So,
All right. We've reached a good point here.
lovely.
So if you look at this, I don't know if you guys can see it.
Put it down there. There you go. And then kind of tip it. Perfect.
But the tapioca pearls have actually started to become translucent. And the best way to tell is when you're letting it sit, you can actually almost see through the balls in here. And it has become thicker to the point where it's leaving more of a trail on the sides of the pan, and it's leaving more of a trail when I go through it. At this point, we're going to add in the vanilla. And this is half a teaspoon of vanilla, and then you're just going to stir it. And then after we add this in, you're going to put it into, you can put it into containers at this point and then chill it, or you can chill it and then serve it, whichever you prefer.
And will that continue to thicken as it cools?
Yes, the longer you leave it in, the more settled it'll be. So right now it is like this soupy texture, but the longer it sets, the thicker it's gonna get. So even though it's still soupy now, in about 20 minutes from now, it'll be a completely different texture than this. And then we're going to move this out of the way.
I can take that for you.
And then I have a glass here to present this to you guys and show you how I plate it. So I have a 1.5 ounce scoop, and I'm just gonna carefully scoop it in without touching the sides. I'm gonna go a little bit above the bottom of the rim of this glass.
Quick question out there. We were asked, is vanilla like salt in where a little goes a long way?
It definitely is 100%. I believe that with every seasoning, a little bit goes a long way. It just depends on your preferences and your tastes. This is a little bit of mango puree with agave nectar and some lemon juice. And I actually, to that point, I added in the agave and lemon juice because of the fact that without it, it would taste a lot more bland and it needed that acidity to go into this dish. And that is one thing that just comes with time. Time is honestly the essence in culinary cooking. Even on Tuesday, I was making food and I did it 100% by taste. And chef actually complimented it because it was really out of the box in the way that I did it.
Well, and I'd add to that too, vanilla is like that in that sense where a little goes a long way, but the quality of the vanilla that you're using, I think, is essential in that
Yes.
conversation. If we're using an imitation vanilla extract versus a true Madagascan bourbon vanilla bean or anything like that, they have very different flavor profiles we want to play with. So, Stephanie, those are lovely. I'll pass the room back to you to chat a little about your finished product.
So these are the two finished products. This one is actually set overnight and it is a very thick consistency. I have already put it into the glass because it is chilled. And then I also presented you with our warm version of it. So you have two different options. Tapioca pudding is served both warm and cold. It just depends on your preferences.
Yes, I actually love a warm tapioca pudding. I think it's really comfortable. And if you made it with a more neutral milk, like an oat milk with a little cinnamon, and then you serve that with just like that on like a cold night. Oh, so like it's like a little cinnamon comfort in a bowl. It's all warm. Yeah, I really like warm tapioca pudding. And everyone's who lived in the South who's had chocolate gravy, that's literally just warm chocolate pudding over biscuits. So I'm not crazy when I say I like warm pudding.
Yes.
Sounds
It's totally
great.
a thing. Well, great. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're
Does
welcome.
anybody have any questions for Stephanie before we get to see our next dish?
Oh, we were asked what was sprinkled on top.
Oh, yes.
So what's sprinkled on top of both of these is a little bit of toasted coconut. I just put it on a sheet and then I baked it at 350 until it was nice and crispy.
Wonderful. And that's a really easy garnish to do because you just pop it in the oven and pull it out when it's crispy and brown.
Yep.
All done. Great. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
All right, next we're going to just to give us 1 minute, we're going to set up for our next demonstration.
Absolutely. One thing while I was watching Stephanie perform here is I really kind of thought about, we teach our students about the idea of chef's intuition, their ability to determine kind of just by through practice. How long is it going to take? How thick do I want this product based on how thick is it going to set in the future? We saw that as Stephanie started to pour kind of that warm tapioca into her glass, it is quite thin, right? But we know that over the next 15 minutes, 12 hours, it's going to become a lot firmer. And so we're going to be able to, I think that takes practice in order to understand what we want our finished product to look like. And that can be kind of sometimes a little unnerving for people who are new, especially to the realm of custards, where being able to determine your thickness throughout the process is really important. And so, it doesn't matter if you're a home chef or a professional, it is practice makes perfect. And then that leads to what we call our chef's intuition, and being able to go, it's right. I trust myself.
Yeah, I absolutely do that in class on a regular basis. Every student will tell you that when I cook, when I tell the students, I give them a recipe, they have these recipes ahead of time and they bring them in. And I always tell them that you need to follow the recipe, and the but is if you're tasting it, it doesn't seem right, you need to trust your intuition as a cook because you're developing these skills and that includes your palate and you're developing those skills. And if your brain is telling you something is off, trust your intuition. And so students have their permission to add extra seasoning or maybe a little bit of vinegar or something else to the dish and tweak it slightly to make sure that it tastes right. Because at the end of the day, the guest who receives that plate wants a perfectly tasting dish. They don't really care whether you follow the recipe or not. They care whether it tastes good. So let's make it taste good. So, all right, we're going to move on. This is Carly. I'm going to let Carly introduce herself, but she is going to make us something that I'm very excited to try.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carly Walls. This is my third year here at NMU, but only my second year in the hospitality program, because sometimes you just don't know what you want to do, and that's okay.
That is.
Today I am going to show you guys how to make simple vanilla glazed vegan donuts. To start out with your vegan donuts, this recipe is going to make 12 donuts, but I'm just going to do 6 for the sake of time. You're going to start with just a little bit of coconut oil, and you're going to rub it into your pans just to get a nice coating on them so they come out nice and easy. And then you're going to start with just your dry ingredients. So 2 cups of flour, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and then just a pinch of salt. And it's really important that you mix these dry ingredients together before you pour in your wet ingredients, just so you get a nice and even batter without any lumps.
And nobody likes little baking soda or baking powder pills in their donuts. So that's not a good thing.
Once that is all whisked together, you're gonna, oh, I forgot my coconut milk.
That's okay. We can grab it.
You're just gonna do 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1/4 cup of oil. And then for these donuts, I personally like to use coconut milk, but really any kind of milk will work. I've tried oat milk and whole milk. Both have worked out just fine. I just find that the flavor of the coconut pairs really well with the coconut oil and the glaze.
It's awesome. Do we have any questions while we're waiting for our coconut milk to arrive?
We don't have a guest question, but you know me, I'm full of questions. Carly, that donut pan, other than the shape itself, what sets that pan apart from anything else? Is it like a double insulated pan, so it's a little thicker than your average cookie sheet?
Yeah, it is definitely a little thicker than your average cookie sheet. And for me, I have tried other pans. This one is a Nordic ware. That is personally one of my favorite brands for this pan. I just find that it helps to cook the donuts more even, so you don't get a lot of browning on the outside. Thank you.
We have coconut milk.
Yeah,
And then
I think that's excellent. I agree with you completely. I think if we're going to throw around brands a little bit today, like we did with salt, then I would say I agree with you on that Nordic ware pan.
For sure.
And then I just add a cup and then a 1.25 cups of the coconut milk. And then you just want to mix that up really well and try and get rid of any of those clumps of that flour or any clumps of anything.
I'm going to take a second while you're mixing to talk a little bit about when you select an alternative milk, such as something like this, and you're going to use regular milk. Regular milk has a little, lactose in it, which is the sugar molecule that's found in dairy milk. But I always like to get, when I'm doing baking, an unsweet version, just like I like to use unsalted butter whenever I'm cooking or baking. And the reason why is because I want to control how much sweetness is in my baked goods. I'm sure Carly would concur. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we want to control how much sweetness. So when we do an alternative milk like this or anything, we always want to get the unsweet kind so that we are controlling that flavor profile and not the pre-sweetened type that we don't know how much sugar is actually in that. And then you have to adjust. And maybe they're too sweet because there's some sugar in there to make it more palatable for something like coffee or that kind of thing. So we always go with an unsweet version.
Okay, and once your batter is all mixed up and ready to go, you're gonna take a piping bag. I find that a piping bag is just the easiest way to not make a mess, honestly. Um, you can also just use a spoon and scoop it into your pan, but it's messy. It's gonna be messy.
I agree, Carly. I always keep piping bags around my house. They come into play for so many different things, but they really help keep me clean and organized in the kitchen, and allow me to be able to hold on to my product and create more consistent final products.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then once you get your piping bag filled, you're just gonna want to take your scissors and just snip a little bit off the top. It really doesn't matter. It just depends on how much you're comfortable with piping into each pan or each spot.
Mm-hmm.
When you're filling your pans, you really want to try and get just below where this part comes up, just so that you don't have a donut without a hole. So usually about 2/3 full is how full I like to fill them.
That's great. Now, why did you choose to do donuts today? Tell us a little bit about that.
So today I chose to do donuts because I work at Northwoods Test Kitchen, located in Barrel and Bean. And we have been delivering baked goods to the crib, a local coffee shop around here. And we were just kind of looking more for like vegan, gluten-free options to offer to people because my family has a lot of dietary preferences and that sort of thing. So sorry.
Yeah.
I've always worked a lot with gluten-free and vegan options.
Also, I'm going to brag on Carly just a little bit and say that Carly is an incredibly talented baker and budding pastry chef. She's better at it than I am, that's for sure. And so some of these recipes that you see here, she's been working over at Northwoods Test Kitchen while going to school. And one thing that we really try to do in our program is create those connections within our local industry and wider range industry. We have an advisory board with several different professionals in the hospitality industry that help inform our program and tell us about it. And so we were just delighted that we could help Carly make that connection and get teamed up with Northwoods Test Kitchen so that she could be doing something that she loves to do that she doesn't get enough time in the classroom doing. And so, and at the end of the day, our students have to go out and work in the field. That's how they're going to become great. We give them all the fundamentals, all the business acumen in our program, but ultimately we got to go out and do stuff, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, Carly works there and it's really a great experience. And I can tell you that her boss raves about her. So that's for sure. All right. So tell us how did they go from batter to this?
Well, magic of TV.
Yeah, right?
But when you put the donuts in the oven, you're gonna want to preheat your oven to 350 and then bake them for 10 to 12 minutes. It really depends on your oven. How I like to tell if they're done is I'd like to just give them a little tap. And if they spring back without leaving an indent, then that means they're done.
That's awesome. And look I love how the color, they're not super brown and they have that really nice light color, which I think is really cool.
Nordic ware.
Nordic
Makes it so they don't brown.
I know, it's good stuff. So what do you have there?
So in here, I have 2 tablespoons of coconut oil and 2 tablespoons of coconut milk, just a little pinch of salt, a little bit of vanilla, and 2 cups of powdered sugar. And then I have this over a pot filled with water because it's very important to keep it warm so it doesn't harden up on you as you're trying to dip your donuts.
That's lovely. I've had the opportunity to swing into the crib here in Marquette multiple times. I think one of my favorite Carly treats was there was this chocolate, gluten-free chocolate banana bread with large chunks of toasted coconut on top. I had that with a latte one morning, and oh, cloud nine for me.
I will say the banana bread is lovely. Um, so when your donuts come out of the oven, you don't want to dip them right away because then your glaze is just going to really melt right off. You want to let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then sometimes they can be a little difficult to get out of the pan. And honestly, the easiest way that I have to tell you to get them out is I just kind of slam the pan against the table and they'll just pop right out.
Yep. That's how you get chocolate out of molds too. Just slam it on the table.
Little aggression goes a long way.
That's right.
And then when you're dipping your donuts, you don't want to fully dip them into your glaze. You don't want to fully, I mean, you can fully cover them if you want. I do like to only dip them about halfway, just so there isn't anything on the bottoms. I give them a little shake, and I just set them down, and they will start to harden.
So, Carly, I think a couple weeks ago I was able to have maybe like a lemon ginger donut you made that was delightful. Can you tell us about some of the other flavors you've created?
Yeah, one of the great things about this recipe is that it is very versatile. Um, I've made chocolate donuts, which you just add like a quarter cup of chocolate into this recipe, or a quarter cup of cocoa powder, and then a couple extra tablespoons of your coconut milk just to keep it a pipable consistency. Um, this is also really good for like tea donuts. We've done Earl Grey, we've done a Thai tea donut, yeah, lavender donuts, you know. They're really easy because all you have to do is steep your tea leaves in your milk, let it cool for a little bit, and then it's good to go.
Great. You want to?
Oh, yes.
That's lovely. We were asked if the video will be shared. I love the idea of being able to share this video with high school ProStart students who might be interested in continuing their education in culinary arts. And so, yes, these videos will be shared tomorrow via email. So keep an eye out for those.
Yep. And so here we have these beautiful, and see how the glaze sets up. That's one thing I love about them. So they are stackable once they set up. We just let them set up for probably about 20 minutes to let the glaze harden.
You can also let them or put them in the cooler and they will set up a lot quicker. Usually only like 2 minutes and they'll be set up.
You always have to know those tricks in a commercial kitchen.
Yes, you do.
So do we have any questions about these donuts?
We do. We have a couple of questions out here. And so let me just double check here. Question on the consistency. Are these donuts more like a cake donut or more like a yeast donut or somewhere else in the mix of things?
These are definitely more like a cake donut. You're gonna get that crumbly texture. You're not gonna get a yeast donut just because it was easier for me to produce. And the recipe was just really good.
I love cake donuts personally, so.
That's great. So we got a couple questions for you, Carly. This recipe, I believe you use standard all-purpose flour for this, but do you have a recommendation for a gluten-free substitute?
I actually have used gluten-free flour, just Bob's gluten-free 1-to-1 flour.
Yep.
And they tasted great. The only issue I had was just they turned into sort of the texture of like a mochi. Like they were a little gummy just because of the rice flour.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, whenever you're working with a gluten-free flour replacement, understand that the texture might be slightly different than a gluten-containing flour, but the flavor is still really good. So yeah, that's just some of the challenges you have when you do work with gluten-free. But Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 gluten-free flour is a very good substitute because you don't have to figure out, oh, do I use a little bit of rice flour and then a little bit of oat flour? Do I mix this together for this consistency? The 1-to-1 does all that work for you. You can swap it out literally. That's why it's called 1-to-1, because you just swap it out for exactly what you need for your all-purpose flour.
Yeah, I agree. I've had great luck with Bob's Red Mill. And I think kind of to wrap up the conversation on the donuts here is, of course, I love this question. Your recipe is baked, Carly. Can the recipe also be deep fried?
Just because the batter is so thin, it would not stay together in a deep fryer, unfortunately.
Not as a donut, but you could probably fry
Yes,
that
yeah.
as a like a funnel cake.
Yeah, like a funnel cake.
And probably turn out really good. I would like for someone to experiment and get back with us about that.
Yeah, leave it in the piping bag and just kind of pipe it right into that fryer oil and see if it settles up in one lovely, delicious clump. That would be
That's
great.
right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carly. The final plate looks delightful.
Well, great. We're really happy that we got to spend some time with you today. Thank you so much. If we don't have any more questions, that's a wrap for us. I know Kylie is going to get on and do some outro stuff with you, but we're so happy you came and joined us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, chefs, for all of that amazing. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to showcase the hard work that our students are doing, spotlight our faculty as well. So thank you, students. Thank you, Chef Alden. Thank you, Logan. Or I think I see that it's Chef G. That's the nickname? Yeah. I'm here for that. I'm calling you that from now on.
Love it.
So thank you all. Appreciate you. Please make sure you stay connected with us. Follow us on social media. We'll be sending out, as we said, the recording, the recipes, and a little survey to all of you tomorrow. So keep an eye on your emails. And also, we'll be choosing one person from tonight's attendees to win a free alumni t-shirt. So keep an eye on your email for that as well. As always, stay connected with us here at NMU. We appreciate you all, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.